Dad gave the business to my brother-in-law, rather than me at his retirement party. After being charged with fraud, they are now seeking my assistance. 2 years ago, my father retired as CEO of the lab equipment company he started. He had informed me for nearly 7 years that I, 30M, would be the next CEO. However, on the day of his retirement celebration, he revealed that my brother-in-law would become the new CEO. It came as a huge surprise to me because I had arranged the party and had no idea what would happen. I clapped along with everyone else as he made the announcement, but then I challenged him. He explained why he had let me down. My brother-in-law, Zach, 34M, seemed to be more of a son to him than I was, as I had disappointed him. Let me explain that Zach had only been in the industry for about a year, whereas I had dedicated 7 years of my life to it. We'd known Zach for a long time. He and my sister, 33F, had been dating for around 5 years and married for 2. When my father retired, Zach and I worked together. And he appeared like a kind man. Still, I couldn't accept the fact that my father thought Zach was more like a son than I was. When I asked my father to elaborate on how I had failed him, he gave the most absurd response I could think of, and I lost all respect for him. He added that while it had been a painful decision, he had to do what was best for the company. He claimed that someone as intellectually weak as I was could never be an effective leader. That's why he passed me over in favor of Zach, who he thought shared more characteristics with him. He was referring to my diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, which I had inadvertently revealed to my family a few months before my father's retirement. One night, while eating dinner with my parents, I unintentionally dropped a small container of anti-anxiety medication that had been prescribed for me. I had to explain everything to them. My mother was fine with it, but my father did not believe in the importance of mental health. He believed that being tough was the answer to everything, and when I revealed my nervousness, he began to lose faith in me. I'd like to emphasize that my anxiousness had never affected the quality of my work, nor had it impaired my ability to run the company. I'm sure many people in upper management deal with anxiety without it affecting their performance. But my father told me I had disappointed him by making excuses for my weakness and relying on drugs. After much debate, he decided that Zach was the best choice to take over the company instead of me. He told me I could quit if I wanted, but he didn't trust me to run the firm the same way he did. He refused to give me the reins because I had shown that I was not strong. It wasn't just what he said, he also encouraged me to believe I'd be the next CEO, despite the fact that he had made his decision well before the retirement celebration. It was very hurtful. That night, I left the celebration early and never spoke with my father again, because he had profoundly hurt me. At the end of the day, it was his company, and he could recruit anybody he thought was the best fit. If he thought my nervousness would get in the way, he would have to go. I needed to respect his decision. However, I did not have to put up with such nasty behavior. So I resigned, and within a few weeks I was working elsewhere. My mother was the only family member I stayed in touch with. When my sister found out that I was retiring because I was upset that my father had picked Zach as CEO instead of me, she took it as a personal attack. Instead of seeking to understand where I was coming from, she phoned me to defend my father, which resulted in a fight. After that, we stopped talking. I haven't communicated with my father or sister in 2 years, and I haven't had any contact with Zach. I occasionally speak with my mother to see how she is doing. We meet at least once a month, and she always tries to urge me to make amends with my father. But I'm just not interested. My mother contacted me about a week ago, quite frantic. She informed me that Zach had been arrested for illegal activity, specifically tax fraud. My father was also under investigation because of his previous involvement with the firm. That bothered me, but I had no idea what she expected me to do. She wanted me to talk to my father, smooth things up, and testify for him in court if necessary, because I had previously worked for the company. I made it clear to my mother that I would not be engaged in any form. I was convinced that if my father was being investigated, the entire company's high management would be investigated as well. If Zach had committed fraud, it was a serious claim, and I didn't want to delve into details. All I knew was that the further I went from this calamity, the better off I'd be. So I made it clear to my mother that I was not going to stick up for my father. They'd have to deal with it on their own, because I didn't want any trouble. Furthermore, if my father actually needed my help, he should have sought me directly. He needs me, so why should I be the first to contact him? My mother then said I was being childish and petty, and that I wanted to talk to my father and clarify the air since the family needed to stick together at this difficult period. I thought she was being foolish, so I informed her my decision was final. I was not going to contact my father at any cost. She grew upset and accused me of being selfish and inconsiderate because, despite the fact that the family was going through a difficult time, all I could think about was what happened 2 years ago. Her statement struck me as quite insensitive. If she had been in my situation, she would have felt just as betrayed as I did and would not have been able to move on so quickly. she would never have forgiven my father if she had been passed up for a position for which she had worked tirelessly for over 7 years due to circumstances beyond her control. It's unfair to expect me to forgive him, especially because my father has never sought to apologize for what he did to me. I do not believe anyone can forgive someone who does not apologize in the first place. So my mother and I argued for a while. Eventually I told her that this was payback for screwing me over, and whatever was going on with Zach and my father right now, they deserved it. My mother went silent and finally hung up. I felt bad for saying that, so I decided to call her back a few hours later. But then I realized she had blocked me. I now feel really awful about what I said. Am I an asshole for suggesting that my father was undoubtedly seeking payback for passing me over for the CEO position? Update 1. Hello everyone. My mother blocked me a week ago, and I still can't contact her. I am trying not to feel terrible about it, but there isn't much I can do. She was the only person that communicated with me during the last 2 years, and without her, I feel absolutely lost and alone. Of course, I can rely on my friends who have all been there for me. But my mother was the one person in my family that looked out for me, and I no longer had her. It's difficult to come to grips with this, and I really want to contact her. However, I still believe I did nothing wrong. I don't think I said anything inappropriate, and I believe this is karma for kicking me out of the firm for something I had no control over. Yes, I feel anxiety, but as I previously indicated, it is not crushing. It has no influence on my ability to lead or work as well as others. It did not disappoint me, as my father claimed. Whether people like it or not, words carry meaning. What my father told me on the night of his retirement party has stuck with me for the past 2 years. His simplistic approach to mental health and its importance hurt my self-esteem for several months. I continued to mistrust myself and rethink every decision I had made up until that point. I felt like an imposter in my new job. It took a long time to recover from that, and I'm still in treatment dealing with unresolved issues. However, my anxiety has never affected my ability to work. Indeed, my managers frequently tell me that I am one of the best employees in my current employment. They're even planning to elevate me soon. I sincerely believe my father made a serious mistake, and it is not my fault if my mother does not see this. It's just unfortunate that she's siding with him, rather than telling him to fuck up and apologize to me. I don't understand why she thinks I should make amends first. One thing is certain: I will not do anything for the family until they have apologized for everything. And they must say it really. I refuse to be used again for personal gain. Update 2. My sister came by to see me today, and it was stressful because she was emotional. She wants me to help her since her spouse is in great danger, but I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. My hands are tied here. This is a federal felony, and I don't believe I can help them. She appeared to be in a difficult predicament, so I allowed her in. I tried to be as kind to her as possible, because I am not a cold-hearted person. I can't just slam the door on someone who is in so much suffering. She began crying on my shoulder, telling me she had no idea what was going on and that if she had known, she would have stopped it immediately. She's frightened about what will happen to him and wants me to use my connections to aid him. Unfortunately, I do not have any such ties that would be applicable here. Then she said that our father had told us that one of my bosses at the company where I currently work is married to a federal judge, and they were hoping I could talk to him and help them. She even suggested that they were willing to pay whatever it took, but they only wanted me to put them in touch with my employer and, by implication, his wife. I thought it was quite inappropriate for her to ask, let alone expect me to do it. I instantly said no, stating that I would prefer if she left me alone. I believed she had come for emotional support, but this was not something I intended to promote or even discuss. I had various reasons for saying no, the main one being that I didn't want to bring this up with my bosses and associate myself with a family of fraudsters. More significantly, I adhere to a personal moral and ethical code. While I don't want anything bad to happen to my sister, if Zach had committed tax fraud, I didn't want to be in a position where I was seeking to help him or influence the matter in his favor. At the time, it was not personal against him. I simply did not want to get engaged. The most I could do was offer emotional support, but going to such lengths was ludicrous. When I said no and asked her to go, my sister sulked, saying she couldn't believe I was still upset with her husband over something that wasn't even his fault. I tried to explain that this wasn't about that. In fact, I'd never really resented him for what happened to my father. My father decided to give him the position instead of me and let him take over the company. If I were in his situation, I would have likely accepted the position without contemplating who truly deserved it. Perhaps I loathed him little, but I didn't hold a grudge. He simply wasn't important enough for that. I attempted to inform my sister, but she refused to listen, arguing that our mother had been correct and that there was no point in talking to me because I was still petty and selfish. We ended up fighting again, and I asked her to leave my house. She couldn't just walk in and disrespect me after all had happened. especially when I had tried to calm her. Even if she never treated me with the same respect while I was going through a difficult time. She clashed with me back then because she perceived it as a personal attack. She kept doing the same thing 2 years later, so if anyone was being petty and selfish, it was my family. Her remark about our mother being accurate made me feel awful, because for the past 2 years my mother had been the only person who had supported me. Now it felt as if she hadn't been there for me at all, and everything was all for show. I was already highly offended, and my sister would not leave. She remained standing there, saying one terrible thing after another. It quickly became apparent that we were both yelling so loudly at each other that I couldn't understand what she was saying. We ended up yelling at each other before she departed. I feel bad about everything that is going on, but I also believe they deserve what is happening to them. I believe they deserve everything bad that occurs to them. I honestly believe that staying in touch with my mother during the last 2 years was a huge mistake, and that I should have cut off my entire family when I had the chance. Even now, I regret wanting to be there for my sister while she was acting out. Their frequent demonstrations make it plain that they no longer deserve my time or attention. However, I find it really difficult to completely eliminate them from my life. I keep thinking about our youth and how close we were, and it saddens me to talk about it now. All of this is bad. I wish it was over sooner. Update 3. It's been 4 days since my sister visited, and we had that dispute. Nobody spoke to me for the next 4 days. I almost believed they'd leave me alone now. My parents arrived today, and I was determined not to let them in. I had made the mistake of letting my sister in the prior time, and we all know how that turned out. I wasn't about to repeat my mistake. They were standing outside the door, and I told them to leave since I didn't think there was anything else to discuss. They couldn't possibly have anything new to say that had not already been spoken. We could save each other's time and leave it at that. But my father said he wasn't coming to ask for help. He sincerely came to apologize. He told me that after a long time he realized he'd done the wrong thing. He admitted that he had made the worst mistake possible, and that nothing he said could make it right. But the least he could do was speak with me and apologize for everything. I have to tell you, that astonished me since I expected him to walk up and start yelling at me. We had not communicated since the night of his retirement celebration. I still remember him calling me a disappointment. I doubt I will ever forget that. It was all I could think about while he apologized. When he was finished, I thanked him for coming all the way here to apologize, but I found it impossible to forgive him. He couldn't simply apologize and expect everything to be fine, especially after 2 years of silence and no effort on his part to contact me. I told him I needed time, and I still wasn't sure I'd be able to forgive him. It wasn't even the fact that he screwed me over 2 years ago that concerned me today, it was the fact that it took him 2 years and so much difficulty to realize he had done the wrong thing and eventually come and talk to me. That is what made me so sad. Even after that, I expected him to become upset and yell, but he simply remarked that he was prepared to wait for me to come around. He said he'd be okay if I never spoke to him again or forgave him. He confesses he made a stupid decision 2 years ago. He took my mental health seriously. He just went too far. He also mentioned that in his family all men were raised to be rough. They believed that getting through life required suffering through everything. Anyone claiming to be nervous or sad was viewed as weak and making excuses for themselves. When he discovered I was using anti-anxiety medication, he began to question my competence to lead the company. He had created the company from scratch and couldn't afford to let it fail. His dread and anxiety got the best of him, and he chose the worst alternative available, leading to our current situation. After we had stopped chatting, he admitted that he was angry with me and had resented me for several months. But then he began to question himself, learning more about anxiety and its mechanisms. He became concerned about his symptoms a few months ago and planned to contact me to fix the matter. However, the entire encounter with Zach became public, and he was unable to hide it. When my father finished explaining everything, I felt strange about the situation. I still don't know how I feel about it all, but at least he apologized. It may appear trivial after 2 years, but it means a lot to me. I don't know if I'll forgive him anytime soon, and I'm not sure if his apology was genuine, but I'm willing to think about it and try. For the time being, I told him to go home and that I'd phone him if necessary. He acknowledged it and left. My mother and I didn't get to talk much today. At first, she and my father both apologized to me. Toward the end of our conversation, she stated her willingness to wait for my forgiveness. She admitted that she had reacted too quickly and aggressively, rather than attempting to understand what I was going through. She also said she had spoken with my sister, who wanted to apologize for earlier mistreating me. However, I do not consider such a sincere apology. My sister is an adult capable of speaking for herself. If she wants to apologize, she will have to do it herself. I understand she's battling with anything Zach-related right now. However, there is no explanation for how she behaved during her last visit. Anyway, the majority of my family members have apologized to me, and it is now up to me to decide whether or not to accept their apology. I will not lie, it will be a difficult decision to make. I haven't spoken to any of these people in 2 years, with the exception of my mother, who is currently experiencing some troubles. On the one hand, I want to forgive everyone and move on with my life since I don't feel anger will help me go on. If I don't forgive them, these notions will continue to torment me, as they have for the past few years, and that is not something I desire. However, I'm not sure if forgiving them and moving on is the right thing to do. I'm just confused on what to do right now. To be honest, I really miss my family and everything is messing with my thoughts. I appreciate that some of you may assume they are only doing this because they are in trouble right now, but I have already indicated firmly that I cannot assist them. Even if I could, I wouldn't. It's a question of principle for me, and I'm not going to change it for anyone. So if they expect my support, they have already set themselves up for disappointment. However, if that is not on their mind and they are sincerely attempting to repent and repair our broken relationships, it confuses matters even more. I guess I'll think about it for a few days and decide what I want to do. I will keep you all updated. Update 4. Hello everyone, it has been 4 months since I last checked on here. I became really busy in the meanwhile, as I'll explain later. In my previous report, I mentioned that my father and sister both apologized to me. My parents did this in person, but my sister, who was concerned about Zach's health, begged my mother to apologize on her behalf. A few weeks later, my sister visited me and apologized in person. I told her the exact same thing I told my parents. I'd think about it and tell her. I thought about it. I took my time, and last month I notified them that I wanted to rekindle our friendship, but at my own pace. I said I'd be prepared to eat dinner with them once a month and see how things go because I'm still dubious whether repairing our friendship is a good idea. They were overjoyed and said it was all right as long as I was satisfied. So that is where we are now. We had supper together a few weeks ago. It was awkward enough, but I could tell they were sincerely trying to make apologies for the past by being extra nice to me. Zach did not attend the dinner since my sister filed for divorce 2 months ago, and he had already been fired from his job. My father offered to make me CEO, but I declined. I guess I need more time. My father is currently handling things at the company and is still waiting for a response from me. I'll think about it for a few more months and decide later, but I might accept. For the time being, I'm just trying to focus on the things I enjoy doing, which includes spending time with my fiancée. She is a longtime acquaintance of mine, and we started dating a few months ago. That's what's kept me so occupied recently. My life now involves more than just work and family issues. In actuality, she was the one who convinced me to forgive my family and give them a second chance. I'm so happy. We're together. I'd liked her for a long time but never asked her out since I didn't want to compromise our friendship. I am glad that she took the first step. Things are improving for me now that we are together and I am as pleased as I can be. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so and click the notification bell to remain updated on more disturbing real-life tales happening around you.